Superstars, it's Peps, and I'm here for the final show of 2025, the grand final review, which I was lucky enough to go with the Big Love Machine, to end a massive year of AFL football. Apologies, we've been offline for quite a number of weeks, 4 weeks, actually the entire final series. There's been a lot going on with myself, there's been a lot going on with Jdog, work, etc., and unfortunately, things have to take its place. But I'm back. He's lovely, sunning it up in the magnificent Bali region right now. But I'm here to take you through my thoughts of a cracking grand final day, a lead up, and just some topics that have pressed my mind pretty much for the entire last week of the AFL season. So, we're going to hit some targets tonight. We've got some exciting things to talk about and an announcement that I will be making at the end of the season, end of the episode, that might be a little bit shocking to you all, but totally understandable to the ones who are within the inner sanctum. So, let's congratulate the Brisbane Lions on a fantastic win in the 2025 AFL Grand Final Premiers. Back-to-back. Only the great teams go back-to-back. You're looking at the Tigers, you're looking at the Hawks, you're looking at the Brisbane Lions. My team D's, the only back-to-back action they had was May versus Melks at Entrecôte back in 2022. But it was a cracking win. It was a magnificent day. Anybody who decides to knock that we have a day grand final over a night grand final are complete morons. I'm saying that right now. It was perfect weather. It was fantastic. The quality of the football, especially in that first half, was exactly what you expect out of an AFL grand final. And to think, because we're going to get some sexy fireworks and maybe some laser shows at night, forget about it. They had over 6.2 or 6.1 million people tuned in for the game. It didn't matter when it was going to be played. If you want to watch the great game of AFL, you will tune in to the great game of AFL. And what a great game that it was. I'll give you my thoughts on that in a moment. The first thing that a lot of people have been chatting about is good old Snoop Dogg. Was it worth it? Was it fantastic? Was it any good? Well, I can tell you this. I don't know how it came across on the TV. But I was there in the MCC, nice and low, right up against the fence. Love Machine on one side, supporters on the next. And it was bopping left, right, and centre. It was gorgeous. It was pumping. There was movement. There was grinding. It was a really nice way to start. I'm not a Snoop Dogg. Mate, give me a bit of two guitars, a drummer, and a singer. That's my type of stuff. I like it rock, and I like it hard. But it was a pretty good show. Knowing that, and here's a scoop for you, I found out that the Foo Fighters were the original, and they were signed up to do the show, but unfortunately had to pull out due to maybe a scheduling conflict, and Snoop Dogg came into it. That is a fact by someone that I spoke to at the game. That's how the type of stuff that I was able to get. But he did a cracking job. I think he pumped out about 6 or 7 songs. And it went really, really well. Jessica Melboy came on stage. You had the Baker Boy doing his stuff out the back as well too. And all in all, you're there to watch the footy. It was a pretty good show. And like I said, if you like it, great. If you don't like it, that's okay. They're trying something. You remember, we've got the Angry Andersons. There's only so many times that we can bring the Seekers out. And I think most of them are past their use-by date, if you know what I mean, on the face of this planet. So you got to go with a rock. They've had Robbie Williams. They've had Katy Perry. They've had Kiss. They've had Snoop Dogg. They can't go backwards. Also, I don't know if you've heard this as well too, but the NRL are thinking of maybe going back to an day game as well. Now, who would have thought, the sport that is so much better than the AFL have now come to the conclusion that probably a day game is better for everybody. And it's exactly right. So there is no doubt in my mind that playing the game during the day was a winner. You can play all the lead-up games at night. Don't care what you do. But you've got to play it during the day. As far as I'll go is maybe a twilight. But outside of that, I'm not for a full night grand final. I think I might have been, but that was my first grand final in 37 years. Back when Melbourne lost to Hawthorn back in 1988 was my last grand final. So it's been a long time. Some of you haven't even been born. Some of you were just an itch in your daddy's pants. And some of you, well, you might be my age and understanding what the great game is. But it was good to go there. Now, let's talk about this great game of football. They were the two best teams. Now, I don't care what Hawthorn, I don't care about Collingwood. I don't think that they would have been able to serve at what these two teams did in that first half of football. It was absolutely phenomenal, the kind of game it was. It was just a genuine arm wrestle. That's what it was. It was an arm wrestle from start to finish. And if you have a look from a statistical perspective, a points perspective, it was virtually outside of the free kicks. It was virtually split 50-50 down the middle. That's how tight this contest was. And then we saw what happened in the second half. It was reminded a lot of people of the 2021 grand final, my boys, with the D's behind me, when they took it apart in that last probably 7 minutes of the third quarter and then really ripped the game apart in the second, in that last quarter as well too. And it really felt like that at the ground. Every contest was being felt by the crowd. The emotion of the crowd rolled with every missed handball, missed tackle, fumble, dodgy kick. There was oohs, there was ahs throughout the stadium. The only time that there wasn't any oohs and ahs was when virtually everybody in the 100,000 that were there sung along to the national anthem, which was done a cappella style, no background noise whatsoever. And it was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely the best rendition I've heard probably since Delta Goodwin rolled hers out a couple of years ago at a final that I went to. But it was magnificent. And because there was no backing track, people had to come along and sing with it as well to bring it up to that really loud level. And it was sensational. So do that again, AFL. You got that one right. You got a lot of things right as well too. Even outside the ground, the stalls that they had, the activities, as they would say, the activations that they had, phenomenal. Plenty of people outside the ground didn't even make it into the ground. It was just, I know there was 100,000 there, but you could walk around freely, you could talk freely, you could go to the loo, you could grab a beer. Mind you, it took about 5 or 10 minutes to grab a beer. But for the biggest crowd that I've ever been to, that was a really awesome experience. That I think everybody once in their life needs to experience, and preferably with their home team. So once again, if you're joining us now and you're live on Facebook, you're live on YouTube, live on TikTok, drop a comment into the chat. I'd love to hear about you. Did the game really hit your level? What did you think about the pre-game entertainment? Anyway, let's get into it. So I actually thought, when I looked back about who would take out the Norm Smith, I really thought Hugh McCluggage was the one that stood out for me. Just he ended up being the highest rated player on the ground, 26 disposals. He kicked 4, had close to 700 metres, close to 600 metres gained as well too. And I just thought he was really influential in the second half, especially when they started to get their role. But the interesting thing is that when you go back and have a look at the game itself, you don't actually realise. And I think it's one of these things that when you watch it at the game, you're so invested in every contest, you actually forget who the player is dishing it out. You're looking for the outside run. You're looking for the free kick in terms of spotting up someone in the forward line or spotting somebody up who's open on the wings or at halfback. But just to see what Will Ashcroft did in and under, like he had 32 possessions when it's 60, almost 63% disposal efficiency, close to 600 metres gained himself. He had 9 inside 50s, 12 contested possessions as part of that. He was absolutely phenomenal. Whether he was giving it out or getting his 10 handball received, it was just a phenomenal effort by this young guy. And he's played, got to understand, he's played 3 years of footy. Got to remember one of those he did his knee in his first year, so he wasn't able to play. And then he's played in 2 flags, 2 Norm Smith medals, and he's not even 21 or just turned 21. He's got a career at the moment. And if I had to ask you a question right now, it's been on the chat skis a little bit as well too. Who is the better set of brothers, the Ashcrofts or the Dacosses? I'd still say the Dacosses because of the overall length of their careers so far. But I will say that both Levi and Will are coming at them hard at the moment. So McCluggage was amazing. Zach Bailey, he would have had an All Smith if he could actually kick straight. His goal kicking was atrocious. I think he had 4 points in the first half himself, and he was at one goal, 5. Ended up, I think, with 2 goals, 5 to finish the game. But really influential, causing headaches left, right, and centre for Geelong. From a Geelong perspective, we all know about Max Holmes. A lot of people picked him out for North Smith. Had over 900 metres gained as well, 33 touches, far and above their best player. And Ollie Dempsey, I know he had a few junk time goals, but he really set them apart early up in the first part of that game as well too. So, but looking at it, you sort of thought who was going to break, who was going to bend. And I remember earlier on Thursday night on the front bar, they had Ken Hinkley on there, and he said, "Look, who are you more scared of? Like, who do you think could really dominate this game?" And he said, "Look, we played a game against Brisbane up there in Brisbane. I think we led for 111 of the 120 odd minutes per se. They played 9 minutes of football and blew us off the park with about 7 goals, and that's what they did in that last quarter. They absolutely destroyed. I think they kicked 9 goals. It was just phenomenal the way that they were doing it. They didn't have a fit Cameron. Stanley was pretty much useless as well too. Danger couldn't get his hands on the ball. Stengel couldn't get his hands on the ball. Manor couldn't get his hands on the ball. They just had issues. It was almost the worst game that they played, and it wasn't because they were trying to be bad. It was just they just got out-hunted and outworked by a better team in the back half of that game. Charlie Cameron, he was on the verge of almost being dropped throughout the year, and they stuck with him, and he comes up and pops up to kick 4. And I think he was the spark in that third quarter. That goal that he kicked from the boundary at the punt road end, just absolutely gorgeous. That was the vintage Cameron that a lot of us have seen over the years as well. And it was just those little things. And then when you think everything could go right, when you're playing Darcy Fort, probably playing the best game of his career, you got the Big O just almost taking second fiddle to Fort over that game. They pull the trigger and pull Lockie Neal in after halftime, has 17 disposals. He was just amazing. 17, 70% efficiency. The goal that he kicked in the third quarter was just absolutely gorgeous to see. And you sort of sometimes realise you sometimes forget how good these players actually are. And he is, he's a 2-time Brownlow medalist, which we all know, but he was just sensational. He was just sensational. So, from a game perspective, it really was a tale of two halves. It was probably, like I said, a really tight first half, a complete arm wrestle going back and forth, and then it just completely opened up in the back half. Harris Andrews, I don't know what more could be said about this guy. I know he's a brilliant captain, 2-time premiership captain now. And until you watch this guy live, and I think this is an issue for people like me who live in Melbourne and don't get to see a lot of the interstate teams unless they're normally playing our own team, you don't see how good these guys are on a regular basis. I got to see him a number of times this year, and he was amazing, absolutely amazing. He was pretty much the only thing keeping the minute against Geelong in the first final. He was brilliant in that game against Collingwood, brilliant against that game in GW against Gold Coast as well too, and he just lapped up everything in that back line that came down. He just totally dominant, and it just meant that Shannon Neal just couldn't get near it. Once again, it's not a case of him not being able to get near it, not trying. He was just outworked and outplayed by a guy who was amazing. And then when you forward into 2026, I just don't understand. Like, these guys are super scary. They are going to be super scary when you think of people like Ty Gallup, Bruce Reville, Josh Dunkley just kept doing. He was on one leg, Logan Morris, Darcy Wilmot. The amount of young guys that this club has got, plus they're going to probably get another quality pickup this year in their academy. And you've got Oscar Allen going there as well too, and Draper from Essendon. It is really scary what they could become, and it also is pretty scary from the league's perspective of how the strong are going to get stronger and the weak are going to get weaker. Even from Geelong's perspective, Curnow could be going down there as well. Now, if you are Jeremy Cameron and Curnow in the one team, getting delivery from Danger, getting delivery from Holmes, getting delivery from Bailey Smith. It is something that the AFL really need to look at, because the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and I don't think the AFL give two shits about it, to be honest. But yeah, something needs to be done too. So what does it mean for next year? Well, I think Brisbane are just going to be staying awesome. I think Geelong is still going to be around the mark, but they have got a few pushing towards that especially when you look at Cameron. You're probably looking also at Dangerfield as well too. He was far from his best. He probably played his best game one week and the worst game of his career the next week as well too. So I don't know from their perspective. I've thought they're going to be falling off the perch for quite a long time, but they continually are able to just go week after week after week, year after year after year, just to absolutely dominate it. So it was a great end to the 2025 season. Beautiful winners, like I said, back to back. It was a great grand final day from my perspective. A great grand final day, actually going to it and seeing it live for the first time in a long time, and for a really good end, per se, to the 2025 season as well, too. All right, a couple of things I really want to get my gripes about. Brownlow medal, Matt Rowell won it. Absolutely pumped for the Gold Coast Suns. Pumped for him that he was able to get that win that a lot of people knew how good this guy was, but he is an in and under beast. But here's where I'm extremely pissed off. First of all, Richard Goyder gets up and doesn't even congratulate Matt Rowell. He goes straight to Nick Dacos and talks about him, the AFL golden child, which, we all know, they wanted him to win. The second thing that annoyed me more after that is now that they're thinking about, well, do we give a second and a third? Well, why? They didn't win it. It's participation medals now. You just want to give something to the people who came second and third because, once again, your golden child didn't win it. Don't bullshit us around. We know what it's all about. But the last one, which has annoyed me more than anything, is that this talk about we've got to take it off the umpires, we've got to give them stats, etc. Just leave it as it is. There's so many other awards that are given out. You got the Coaches Award, you got the AFL Players Award, you got the Lou Richards Medal, you got the G360 Awards, you've got the other paper awards, Herald Sun Player of the Year. You name it, that where stats are involved, etc. This one is purely from what the umpires see on the day. And to make a change for change's sake, why? It's just a quirk. And we need to have quirks in our game because, unfortunately, we're getting really sterilised in the way that we're doing things. And I don't agree with it one iota. The other thing which people don't realise is a game is actually played over 4 quarters. Now, this is the perfect example with the Wangani Malira not getting the 3 votes against Melbourne. Does anybody forget that they were down by 46 points at 3-quarter time? And yes, he'd kicked 2 goals, but he actually wasn't dominating. And yes, he played a great minute of football. Not doubting that whatsoever. But if you actually go back and watch that game, Jack Viney was an absolute beast up to 3-quarter time. And this is where I think people forget. They only remember the person crossing the finish line of a marathon, but they forget about the 41.5 kilometres that they've run to get to that final stage. So should he have got 3 votes? That's up in the air. But it wasn't a fait accompli because the game was over 4 points. And there were multiple examples where people have got 10 coaches' votes and didn't even poll from the umpires as well too. So can we just stop screwing around with these things and just leave it the way it is? Don't make a change. Just keep the greatest medal in our game as it is. And just let the umpires do their job. And there's going to be flaws, and that is what makes it great. Just because you're golden child, just because you're favourite, just because the clean-cut guy that you wanted to win didn't, stiff shit. That's life. Not everybody wins the if that was it, then horses would be the unbackable favourites winning every single race, everyone that's a favourite for. It just doesn't work that way. So, time to move on. Trade week is starting to hit us as well too. And yeah, that's going to be interesting. A lot of interesting stuff coming out of Trackers over in South Australia, meeting up with people. Kerno wants to go. Jamari Ugle-Hagan is looking with meeting up with people. There's with Merritt. There's lots of stuff. This is going to be a fascinating trade period, and I'm interested to sort of see how the clubs are going to do it, because with future picks, not just 1 but 2 years in advance now, clubs can be a little bit more open to give stuff out, but with compromised drafts, etc., how far are they willing to take draft picks when they may want players instead? So that's going to be an interesting sort of lookout. But I'd be keen to hear from you all just to say, hey, what are you thinking about this? Is it a chance? I don't know. Fascinated to hear from you all. Outside of that, I do have an announcement to make. Now, a bit of an interesting one, this one. So I've been doing Lace Out since 2018. So this is our 8th season. And a lot has changed in that 8 years. I did start it by myself. Jamie the Jdog, the greatest co-host with the most anybody could ask for, joined as well. And we've been running shows pretty much ever since then, up until the end of 2025. But like I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, we weren't able to do the last 4 weeks because, unfortunately, life has got busy. I've got 2 teenage kids. Jdog's got his kids as well too. Things going on with work, etc. And it's getting harder and harder to dedicate the time to give a show to you that you honestly deserve. When I first started, I just wanted an alternate voice talking about footy, because I thought that there's absolutely too much bullshit on the TV these days. And I still think there's even more bullshit on TV these days, and they just don't tell it how it is. And we've been hopefully doing that over the last number of years too. But it's come to a point now that it's going to be hard to do a show every single week. And it's getting harder for Jamie and I to commit every single week. So I don't know why we're going to be. I don't know what's going to be happening from this point on, but I can't promise you that Lace Out as a weekly show will be going on in 2026. It's just going to be tough. There's just a lot of things obviously going on with ourselves, and yeah, we've just sort of come to the conclusion that it's you're either 100% involved or you're not. You can't be half pregnant. You either are or you're in. You're in or you're out. And at the moment, we're leaning more out than in too. So it looks like that this might be the last official show for Lace Out, a show that I started many, many moons ago. Now, situations might change, but as of today's date, the 29th of September, that light will be going out for the last time on our show. So probably not something that you all wanted to listen to and all didn't expect. But yeah, we sort of had made a call probably a couple of weeks ago thinking we're maybe not going ahead next year in this capacity. We will be there in some way, whether it's from a video, whether we might join every couple of weeks. We're not too sure yet, but as a weekly show, it's going to get harder and harder to do it, and we've decided to just maybe put it on ice. So to all our loyal listeners who have been with us since day dot, and you all know who you are. I don't have to go through the names. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I know all across this beautiful country of ours and all across the world, people have been listening to Lace Out. I've had messages. I've had emails. I've had that much enjoyment meeting so many people from so many different podcasts, whether it's Blues Abroad, or whether it's a Yank on the Footy over there in the States, whether it's the Purple Rain, whether it has been Saints TV. I could go on and on and on. They've all been so accepting of me and our little show, and I can't thank them enough. And I can't thank the listeners enough as well too. You're the show. That's why we do it every single week, and the banter that we have every single week on the chat Craigie Jones, perfect example. Yeah, that's sort of where it is too. So I don't know much more I can say about that, but yeah, shiver me timbers, Craig Jones. Situation might change in 6 to 8 months, but at the moment, it's just a little bit too tough too. So on that, I'm just going to say thank you, everybody. I'm Chris Pepper. I'm the host of Lace Out, and that was your grand final review. And I'm the host of Lace Out, and it's how you wanted your footy. Have a great year. Hopefully, we'll be back soon, but just stay awesome because we love your footy and we love you too.